Well, yeah, let's get into it, man. Because the last time I spoke to you, you were just about to embark on this radical mission across the
Mm,
archipelago by motorbike,
mm.
and you've undertaken that, and you've made it pretty well as far east as you can go by bike. I'm guessing. I mean, maybe you can keep going to Timor from Sumba, can you,
Mm.
by bike? I'm not sure.
You can. It just seems like once you get to this part of the archipelago, things get a lot slower, things get a lot further, things get a lot more remote, and it's a lot. The bike becomes sort of more of a hindrance than a help. It'd be a pretty sick part of the country to explore, but you definitely want some sort of vessel, I reckon. Um, yeah, if only you can put an outboard motor on the bike and putt, putt around the Indian Ocean on that.
Well, I think a guy did try that at Chopes, didn't he?
He set it on fire or something as well. I think but
Yeah, right.
yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, man. So you've got a couple of episodes out already from the journey, and they're amazing. They're so sick. They're
Mm, mm,
exactly the style of journalism that I enjoy, where you're talking to everyday people about their experience of life, and for me, like that's where all the wisdom and fascinating insights are found. Truth is stranger than fiction, and it's just for me
mm,
endlessly compelling to hear the everyday stories of struggle in a place as impoverished as Indonesia, but also the meaning they manage to kind of come up with that allows them to circumvent poverty and still live happy and healthy lives. I really enjoyed it.
yeah, thanks, man. Yeah. It's a beautiful country, and I mean, people here don't have a lot, but people here also don't need a lot as well. It's one thing I really enjoyed traveling around the country is one thing I really connected with is just how people find pleasure in the simple everyday things. Everyday things in life. Family and eating together and just sharing life with people that they love and people that they're close to. They're kind of the things that are really important. Um, and yeah, it's been really cool to experience that. I suppose this trip's been more of a cultural adventure than just a surf trip. I think if it was just a surf trip, it'd be pretty easy to be disappointed. I mean, going to these places and having a look, it's kind of pretty hard to score straight off the bat. It's pretty rare to sort of just rock up to a place and the waves are cooking. You got to put in a bit of time, and especially this part of the country, it's really difficult to get around as well. There's I mean, most of the roads that run through the country, the roads along the northern coasts are traditional trading routes that sort of provide access to a lot of safe anchorages that are kind of along that um, yeah, the non-exposed sort of northern coast, and the roads along the southern coast are pretty exposed and pretty rough, and it's pretty hard to get down to the beach. It's kind of an all-day affair. Google Maps isn't much help. A few times it's given me a bum steer and sort of sent me, ended up on top of these cliffs looking down at where I'm trying to go to and got no way of getting down there. So yeah, you sort of just got to rely on the directions of local people, and sometimes there's no real going from spot to spot checking. It's kind of, yeah, sometimes it's just a half day event actually trying to get to a spot and have a look. Um, so it's not easy traveling. It's not the sort of trip that you'd come on if you're kind of just looking to score and get waves. Um, but yeah, I mean, for me, it's been about the experience. It's been about experiencing in its fullest a different country, a different people, and learning from them, and relaying some of their stories and some of the things that I've come across along the way as well.
Yeah, can you paint the scene of what Sumba looks like, both geographically and culturally? I understand they have a different belief system there. It's like animism or some form of like, yeah, like culturally and religiously distinct to the rest of Indonesia, and they still run those really ancient the horse riding festival I've seen there. Like
Mm.
it's probably the least touched place in all of Indonesia, right?
For sure. I mean, I suppose when I was coming to Sumba, I was what I'd heard was that it was one of the poorest parts in Indonesia, and that was kind of what I was expecting. It's actually proved to be quite the opposite. I think their traditions and their culture, it's actually really quite an expensive tradition and culture. I mean, a lot of people often they'll have ceremonies to celebrate things from like anything from building a new house to a death to a marriage to all kinds of things. Right now, there's a festival happening to celebrate the start of the planting season, coming up to wet season now. And so it's quite diverse and quite different. There's a lot of different tribal groups which all have different beliefs in the western part of Sumba. There's no building or no activity that's allowed to be undertaken to give everyone a rest. And even if somebody dies, they're kept in the house and looked after, and they're not allowed to be buried until the end of that season's finished. So yeah, they're given a special room, and people are invited in to come and offer bring them things. I haven't had the chance to come across that yet, but yeah, culturally it's really rich. People say it's a pretty poor place, but I mean, to celebrate a lot of their traditions, people often sacrifice animals like pigs, horses, buffalo, which are used. Each different animal is used to celebrate a different purpose, and these things can be really expensive. I went to a ceremony a little while ago where 12 pigs were sacrificed, and the pigs can cost up to $2,000, you know. So there's sort of 25 grand, you know. And yeah, I mean, for an island that has a reputation of being one of the poorest parts in Indonesia, it's actually and people here don't need a lot to live, you know. As I said, that they're grateful for the simple pleasures that they have in life, and I suppose while money and financial income might be a Western way of measuring wealth, I mean, I think here that the scale of measurement's very different, you know. So yeah, it's been pretty cool to experience that for sure.
It's so ironic, man, because in my own personal life, I'm trying to basically reach a place that they exist in, which is to say, growing my own food, slaughtering my own food, and living with as little money or as little need for money as I can. And I've actually been incredibly influenced by Indonesians, lived there for 3 years. And I noticed that exactly as you're pointing out, they kind of live second world, like they're, they don't have money and they don't have some basic things that they fucking deserve and need, like healthcare. But yeah, like everyone or a lot of people have little plots of land where they grow their own food. They have chickens, goats, and so once you have housing and food sussed and a village and a community where you can trade, there's not such a need for money. And not only that, you're fully engaged with the natural world. You're waking up when the sun comes up, you go on to bed when it goes down. And so I believe that is a much healthier and happier way to live, albeit with a few Western caveats to that, like it's good to have some knowledge about health and wellness to incorporate into that kind of routine. So for me, my ideal lifestyle is a merger of a bit of Western knowledge and healthcare, and really an Indonesian subsistence style of life. I really believe in the value of that.
For sure. And I think one thing that makes that difficult in the Western world is that to pursue that life is very much an individual decision that you have to make, and you're swimming against the tide in some ways. Whereas here, everybody's kind of living in that way, and you're able to rely on the people around you for support. It's like, if you don't, I mean, it's been interesting traveling around here. It's especially once you get over to the eastern side of the island. There's basically, there's no tourism infrastructure at all. There are no hotels. There aren't even places to eat, to go and buy food. So I mean, the only way to really get around is to go basically to go into a family home and ask and say, hey, look, I'm traveling. Like, I'm hungry. Are you able to make some food for me? Like, are you able to give me a place to stay? And people are so welcoming and so friendly. You know, it's really inspiring to see. And I suppose one thing, coming to this part of the country and traveling in that way, one thing that's proved really vital is the importance of language. I think without language, without any kind of Indonesian language skills, it'd be really difficult to get around. And it's beautiful as well, because that language has given me an insight into those people and their way of viewing the world as well. I mean, I think language is the window into the soul of a people. I think one thing that I think it's only really possible to learn a language while you're actually immersed in it and surrounded by it. I think it's difficult to learn a language from outside a country, because I think a language is basically a people's way of describing the world in which they live in. And I think the language comes secondary to the understanding of that world. I think it's only once you understand the world that the people live in that you can understand their way of describing it. So yeah, it's been interesting to get an insight into the world in which these people live, and also coming to understand the language in which they use to describe it as well.
Mm. And talk us through the experience of, asking people for food and housing, and tell us about some of the characters you've met in Sumba and the places you've stayed and the stories they've relayed to you.
Yeah, on the western side of the island, there is some tourism infrastructure. There's one area where there's a few surf camps. There's a few waves around there, and sort of a lot of the tourism and a lot of the surfers seem to congregate in that area. But once you get over to the other side of the island, it gets pretty remote. The roads are really rough, and I mean, it's kind of frightening at first. We sort of went down. There was one wave. I was joined by a mate at one point, and we're trying to get down to this beach. We knew that we knew there might be waves down there, and so it was 12 k's from the village to get down there. It was a really, really rough ride over this mountain range. We both went down about 4 or 5 times. We're sort of carrying all of our stuff in there. I think we had about 7 or 8 liters of water each in our board bags, a bag of rice. I mean, we thought we'd asked one of the ladies from the homestay to pack us enough food for 2 or 3 days. We sort of thought we were going to get down there and open up these parcels loaded with rice and chicken and vegetables and all sorts of things to eat. We got down there and all we had was 4 little packs of rice and 4 boiled eggs. It had to last us 3 days. So yeah, we like riding down that road. My mate snapped his surf rack halfway through. We had one strap that we were able to tie it back up with, and kept going. And there was a really gnarly hill that we were both struggling to get up. We'd both come off the bikes about 3 or 4 times by that stage. And there's no one around, it's really quite dry. It's quite remote. And I'm sort of coming up this big hill, and I went down. I fell off the bike. I couldn't get it. And like the angle of the hill, there was no way that I would have been able to get the bike started again and get the bike back up the hill without rolling backwards. And so I'm thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this? I couldn't turn it around. And suddenly these 4 guys just walk over the hill. One of them's carrying a gun. The other 2 have got spears, and the other one's carrying a machete. I've gone, oh fuck, what's going on here? Mate was pretty scared. They got guns, they got spears. And yeah, it started talking to them. They were deer hunters. It was the new moon. They'd been out camping down the beach looking for deer for the last week, and they were sort of walking back. Sumba's a place that has a lot of similarities to Aboriginal Australia pre-colonization. They were just walking around hunting, and walking, relying on natural springs for water. I offered them some water. They said, no, there's a spring down there. We could get get some water from down there. But yeah, these I asked these guys for a hand, and they all put down their weapons and got behind the bike and sort of pushed the bike to stop it from rolling back down the hill. And I got it going again and got it back down the hill. So eventually we got down to this beach and opened up our little packs of food. And yeah, we're pretty disappointed when we saw what we had to last us the next 3 days. You know, just 4 little packs of rice and 4 boiled eggs. We went through that pretty quickly. I think our only luxury was like a few cigarettes and a pack of biscuits. But yeah, it turns out there were actually another couple of fishermen camping down there. I went up to one of the camps and traded him like a bit of homemade alcohol. A lot of crew here drink. It's called pechi. It's basically like a watered down version of arak. So I swapped him a few chilies and a few cigarettes and a bit of alcohol for some smoked fish, which kept us going. And then on the second day, I went up to this other camp. We actually, like, I don't know, it's one thing that's been frustrating as well, is like you put all this effort getting into this spot, and then like there's a few charter boats operating around the area. So, you know, you get down to this spot and there's waves and you go, oh, we got it all to ourselves. And then a charter boat of sort of 10 frothing surfers rocks up, you know. So yeah, a charter rocked up. There are a few guys who we surf with, and things were getting a bit desperate. We sort of asked them, "Oh, you guys don't have any food that you'd be able to spare or anything?" And yeah, one of them said he was going to go back and ask the captain. And later that afternoon, we went up to this other fishing camp to see if we could get a hand to tie my mate's surf rack back onto his bike. And the guy gave us a couple of big mud crabs. He'd been fishing for mud crabs in the mangroves, and then the crew from the charter boat came in and brought a few beers in for us and had a huge bag full of like snacks and a bit of tuna. And wow. So yeah, I mean, just relying on the generosity of other people, you know, it's yeah. I mean, I think travel is one of those things where it really helps to restore a kind of faith in humanity. I think, in essence, almost all people are good, generous people and want to help. And traveling and being forced into these positions where you have to rely on the generosity of other people, it really restores a faith in humanity. I suppose that's one thing that's become evident through the trip. But yeah, we had a mission getting back out as well. We ended up staying for 3 days. We got a few fun little waves down there, and we sort of loaded back up again and gone to ride out. And we got about a K back up the hill, and I've got a flat tire on the bike. So my mate's gone to ride back down to the fishing camp to see if he can get some help, to see if they've got any tools down there to try and fix the tire. 2 hours later, he comes back and he goes, "Look at this." He'd got a flat tire riding down as well. And the guys at the fishing camp had just used a bit of rope to tie his tire back onto the rim, just to stop it from rolling off the rim. So he's come back up with a bit of rope. We've managed to tie my tire back on. We probably only had 500 mils of water left, like a fair way to go still, no food. And it was getting pretty hot. We weren't sure if we'd be able to get the bikes back up over that hill. And yeah, we got a little way up, and then my bike ran out of fuel. So we were sort of stuck there on the side of the track in the heat, trying to figure out what to do. My mate Webby, he ended up dumping all his gear. He started riding to go and look for help. And I wasn't. Yeah, I thought, oh, you know, what if something happens to him and like he's not able to come back with fuel and water? I was like, I'll just start walking and see how far I can get. So I took my last durry, lasted a bit of water, and started walking. And yeah, he managed to go and get some help, managed to go and get some fuel and water. And it's funny, you know, we're sort of battering down these tracks, like carrying surfboards and gear on these trail bikes, and you see these Indo guys just doing on like a little Yamaha 125 Sporty with like a, you know, just an esky full of fish strapped to the back. It's unreal. So yeah, he ended up finding some help and came back with some fuel and water, and he got a lift back to the bike, and yeah, he's the guy who came to the Sumbanese guy came to give us a hand, invited us to his place and sort of watered us down with coconuts and wouldn't take any money, you know. it's just, yeah, there's such a generosity of spirit here. You know, people here really do go out of their way to help, and it's such a beautiful place to explore and experience.
It's amazing, man, what you're saying there about the generosity of spirit and just the fact that traveling when done properly, i.e. with purpose and outside of the regular old tourist traps, the whole experience is almost like just this endless meditation on the kindness and generosity and the better attributes of the human spirit. And it's life-changing. Like, definitely changed my life. And I think that's one of the real bonuses of surf travel. Like, we've got a purpose. We have a reason for being there that's taking us to weird places where, you know, you're not generally getting tourists. So you're ending up with really like kind of shocked locals who you know, are not used to interacting with foreigners, and as a result are not jaded by the experience of too much interaction with Westerners, and are genuinely there to help you. And it's
Mm.
radical. I can't imagine how uplifting this whole experience has been.
For sure. I mean, it's not easy though. I mean, it's like there's definitely easier ways to get around. I mean, traveling like this, I mean, even just trying to find the basic necessities become a struggle. You know, it's life is kind of distilled down to its most basic elements. It's like, well, where am I going to get food from? Where am I going to get water from? Where am I going to sleep tonight? But I think the blessing in that is also the struggle of it as well. You know, it's distilling life down to its most basic necessities, and through that it reminds me of what's really truly important. You know, what actually matters. I mean, I think in the Western world there's this tendency to complicate everything and to seek something more, something beyond that. But I mean, traveling in this way, it's a way of reminding myself that these sorts of things shouldn't be taken for granted. You know, and the Indonesian people have a beautiful way of doing that. You know, I mean, food, water, shelter. I mean, they're all things that these people don't take for granted.
The only wave I've ever heard of in Sumba is Oki's left at Niawatu, and you actually went there and had an audience with Claude, the guy who owns the joint. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so I reached out to Claude. He had just returned back to Sumba. I went and caught up with him. I wanted to find out more about. I mean, obviously, when most people think of Sumba, that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind. That's probably the most prolific thing related to surfing in Sumba. And I mean, it's a really controversial thing as well, you know, because I mean that resort has basically taken over that particular patch of ocean, stopped other people from coming in, and like charges people to surf. Basically, it basically commodified the act of surfing. I mean, Claude, I wanted to find out more from Claude. He's a really interesting character. He actually walked across half the island of Sumba. He'd traveled around the world surfing, and he had this dream of, he really wanted to build this resort somewhere, and he traveled around the world to Madagascar and other places looking for the perfect spot to find his resort. And he came to Sumba. He said he wanted somewhere that still had a really strong culture and really strong traditional beliefs. He had a few criteria. Obviously, it had to be beautiful. There had to be good surf. There had to be hills, because I mean, to build a luxury resort, you need some elevation. Otherwise, you know, if you've got kind of villas down the front, villas up the back, the ones down the back don't have a view if it's flat. So he walked across half the island of Sumba, trying to find the perfect spot to build this resort. This was in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and he was saying that back then it was really still quite tribal, and a lot of the tribes were at war with each other, and so he'd hire a group of guys. He was traveling with surfboards and cooking stuff and camping gear, and he'd hire a group of guys to carry with it. He was traveling with his wife, and he'd hire a group of guys to carry his stuff for him. and they'd get to the edge of their tribal boundary and kind of not want to go on into the next tribal boundaries. They'd stop and leave, and he'd have to go and find new guys to cart his gear. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like he was quite scientific about the process as well. He was taking sand samples from different beaches and wanted to measure the quality of the sand, and he really wanted to find the perfect spot to build this resort. And he said as soon as he set foot on Niuatu, he knew that was it. That was the place, you know. I haven't had the opportunity to see that wave at its best or surf it, but a lot of people do say it's the best wave in Sumba. But I mean, talking with Claude, it's a pretty controversial thing what he's done. Talking with him, I kind of understand what he's tried to do. I mean, a lot of places you go, a lot of surf camps are basically, you know, a lot of places around the world have basically just become kind of surf ghettos, you know. And so he sort of wanted to create this place where you could still come with your kids and your family and your wife and enjoy the luxuries of this place without without too much of a that sort of surf ghetto experience, you know. And I asked him, I said, you know, do you think the state of surfing now, do you think the ability to surf good quality waves without a crowd is now a privilege that you have to pay for? And I mean, you look at a lot of the way that that everybody else travels. I mean, that's kind of what we're all seeking, isn't it? You know, and we're all spending money to go to these places and to be able to try and do that. Not everyone has the luxury that I've got, where I've got all this time and I can explore and really get off the beaten track and try and seek that out. You know, if you've got a mortgage and a family and kids and you want to be able to experience that, I mean, this is, you know, a resort like that is kind of one of the only places that you're able to go and do that, and that's guaranteed as well, you know. And a lot of us spend a lot of money trying to seek that, trying to find that as well. So I mean, I guess in his logic, it's like, well, why not just make that an easily available an option that's easily available to everyone, you know? He sold the resort I think about 10 or 12 years ago. And there's an American family that have taken it over, the Birch family. I mean, in Claude's thinking, it was, you know, the wave was only exclusive to guests. You didn't have to pay for waves, but yeah, with the new owners, it's now, you know, there's now a schedule. You've got to pay, I think it's $100 US for a 2-hour session. And yeah, it basically commodified this natural resource of waves, you know. It's a pretty controversial thing. It's a lot of local people. It's not really well received by them. But I mean, Claude's also set up a foundation that have done a lot of good work. They are really giving back. There's a Sumba Foundation that are providing education and employment opportunities and like fresh drinking water and malaria treatment to people that are there, to local people. So I mean, yeah, it's a controversial thing. I'm not really sure. I mean, I agree with both sides of the argument. You know, I can see the benefits of both, and I can see the controversial parts of both as well. But it's a pretty interesting thing, you know.
It's a strange paradox too, because I don't know of many good surfers who are rich. Like generally, those two things kind of cancel each other out. If you focus your life on making money, the chances are you haven't been able to dedicate the requisite time to surfing to be able to even surf those waves properly. And we saw that in Tavarua, you know, where it became this kind of refuge for Google employees and just wealthy kooks, and swell after swell went unridden there for years while it was privatized, like the proper swells, you know what I mean? And I imagine it's a similar situation at Claude's or at Niuatu a lot of the time, where the people who are paying the exorbitant amounts of money to stay there just aren't up to the task to take full advantage of the world-class and fucking pretty consequential wave out the front.
For sure, yeah. yeah, I mean, yeah, it'd be pretty cool to be able to sample it, you know. But yeah, it's obviously a privilege that's kind of only available to the elite few.
Mm.
But yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, especially in that part of Sumba as well, where there is a little bit more tourism. It's an interesting crowd. There's not a lot of kind of like grassroots level, well, surfing infrastructure. You know, that there's kind of like a lot of these really expensive resorts that attract that sort of clientele. You know, guys who don't have a lot of time, haven't really been able to dedicate that time to surfing, but do have money. Um, and yeah, it doesn't really like it's far from Bali. It's hard to get there. It's hard to get around and explore, and so it's yeah. Um, there's kind of not that much else, you know. So yeah, it's definitely interesting, the crowd in the water. It's definitely easy to get waves at a place more so than a place say like Desert Point or somewhere where the level of surfing is really high. But yeah, it's an interesting place for sure.
And tell us a bit about your travel partner, Webby. You were saying he spent 5 months in an Archinese prison for
Yeah.
overstaying
So I
his
was,
visa.
yeah,
Fuck.
yeah. So I met Webby. I stayed in West Sumbawa for a month. I camped. Yeah, I sort of I got pretty lucky there. A friend of a friend had just built a place right out the front of Super Sucks, and my mate introduced me to him, and we got along pretty well. And you know, more about travel, restoring the faith, restoring a faith in humanity. He let me crash at his place for a month. Webby came there a bit later on, and he mentioned that he'd spent all this time in an Chinese prison for overstaying his visa by 5 days. I wasn't. It's all sounded a bit sus to me, you know. I'm going, oh, this got, you know, overstaying your visa by 5 days. It doesn't quite equal 5 months in an Chinese prison and 17,000 Australian dollars to get out. So I was a bit curious, but yeah. I told him about what I was doing, and he was kind of curious. He wanted to come and join me at some point, which was cool. It was good to have a bit of company, and it gave me a little bit of a safety net to push a little bit harder and explore, and having someone with me and go a bit more remote. But yeah, he told me the story. He was a bit sick. I think he wanted to stay in Arche a bit. There was a swell coming. He wanted to stay in Arche a bit longer to go surfing. So he changed the he changed the date on his visa. Just kind of added an extra one or something, thinking it would slip past the immigration, and yeah. It didn't turn out too well for him.
Yeah, because Indonesians don't have
But
impeccable attention to detail on fucking everything. They're unbelievable. You can't get anything past them.
yeah. So yeah, he told me about the experience. It sounded like a pretty interesting experience. It didn't sound too frightening. It sounded, yeah. I mean, he's basically, you know, he was in there during Ramadan. So sort of while he was there, no one would kind of bring him water or food during the day. So yeah, I think the 5 months he was in there, he's pretty much just living off dried noodles and water and cigarettes. You know. It would have been an eye-opening thing for sure. I don't think he'd be fudging his passport again anytime soon.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Yeah, I've been to one prison in Sumatra to visit this kid, Agus Framanto, who got locked up after winning a comp at HTs. Actually, just there was like a little roach he got past and ended up getting put away in prison. The cops, I guess, caught wind of what was going down, and he got done for just that little bit of pot. And I think what a lot of people don't realize about Indonesian prisons is they're like, mate, they're so bodgy and ramshackle. It's unbelievable. When you're in there, you can't even tell who's a guard and who's a fucking inmate. Like everyone's kind of just in plain clothes, bare feet. Everyone's smoking darts, and but they're also incredibly under-resourced, super overcrowded. You know, in that one had made some like, UN watch list for overcrowding that prison. It's at Penang, actually, in Sumatra. And yeah, you know, I think there was like, it was hundreds of people in a cell. So like, it was like kind of one big cell, and yeah, you do your best. So Aceh as well, that's, you know, the Sharia law, like the hard line Islamic part of Indonesia, where, yeah, during Ramadan, if you get caught eating in the inappropriate hours during the daylight hours, you can get killed. I've heard of cops getting killed there, actually, by the religious police for eating during the daylight hours during Ramadan. So, mate, fuck, that's wild. Aceh is like pretty much as far out of bounds as Sumba in the other direction.
For sure, yeah. And yeah, he was saying it was interesting seeing some of the people that were in there. You know, he was saying a lot of the people who he was in there with were basically just really petty criminals who couldn't afford to pay their way out of prison. You know, I mean, I suppose in Indonesia, the one thing about Indonesia is there's a lot of grey area in this country. Things aren't really black and white. And, you know, that's hard enough to deal with sometimes on a day-to-day basis. But then when you're tied up with the legal system, he wasn't given a court date for sort of like 3 or 4 months. You know, it's kind of, there's no real process that he had to follow. He's kind of like, well, what do I do next? How do I get out? It's like, you know, you sort of have to just talk to this guy who can talk to that guy who can, you know, maybe pay that guy, and like, yeah. But yeah, I mean, the sorts of people that were in there, he said there were people in there for being gay, or you know, just like sex before marriage, or yeah, you know, all sorts of crazy things like that. So yeah, it was a pretty eye-opening experience for him. He said the day he got out, if you ever seen that Simpsons episode where Homer Simpson's running around in circles going whoop, 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 he reckons he reckons he was doing that the day he got out.
Holy smokes, that's heavy. Fucking hell. And so I don't know if you were still with him, but you mentioned that you guys got dropped on an island with nothing but an abandoned resort, and there was some big turtle massacre went on there or something.
Yeah. So after that pretty eventful trip down to the beach, there was a little bit of swell coming. We were still, we were in an area where there was still the potential to maybe score some good waves. I knew this island where there were some waves. Like before I started on this trip, I worked pretty closely with Jim Banks, who, you know, he knows it all. Every little nook and cranny of Indo, he's been there. So yeah, I tied in with Jim. He shaped us a sort of one board quiver for the trip. And I've been in contact with him a bit. He's given us a few pointers and sort of told us where might be good at the right time, which has proved really invaluable, you know. So yeah, I wanted to get to this place. We rode after getting the bikes sorted as best as we could. We rode for 3 hours down this rough road. You got there just on sunset, and there's kind of just this little seaweed fishing village. I went and found the head of the village and asked if he was able to offer us a place to stay and maybe help us try and sort a boat ride out to the island in the morning. He gave us a room to stay in and cooked some food for us. And then the next day we got a boat sorted. We went out to this island. The boat driver, he worked for PLN, which is basically the equivalent of, like, say, Telstra, like an energy provider in Australia. He was carting 3,000 litres of diesel back from the mainland over to this island for the generator which supplied power over there. So he had it split up between these two boats, like two big long 12-meter wooden Indonesian fishing boats. Each, like, one was powered by like a 25 horsepower motor. The other one just had like basically a converted whippersnipper motor with like a big long shaft and a tiny little twin prop off the end. And so we're putting over there.
With every Indonesian crew member chain punching darts while they're driving the diesel across the channel, no doubt.
Yeah. He was just sitting on the bow. He kind of got one of the younger guys to drive the boat, and then just went and plonked himself on these barrels of diesel and just sat there chain smoking durries right on top of the barrels. You know, I was a little bit worried, eh? Yeah.
So good.
But so this island that we want, there were two islands out there. One had a population of about 800 people who were pretty much all squid fishermen, and the other one was uninhabited. We had to go and drop the diesel off at the populated island first, and then we were going across kind of the only day that there was going to be waves, and we got there. We had to wait for him to have like to eat and have a sleep before he'd drive us over to the other island. So we didn't get going to go across to the other one for until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the arvo. I tell you, like, patience is probably one of the most valuable commodities you can have in Indonesia. You know, nothing happens too fast here, especially once you get out into the more remote parts of the country. You know, so yeah, he packed us a few bags of rice, and basically all people have got to eat out there is just rice and squid. You know, I never knew there were so many different ways you could cook squid. Squid for breakfast, squid for lunch, squid for dinner. But yeah, he packed us a bit of squid and some rice, and ended up taking us out to this island. We got dropped on this island for a couple of days with a bit of water and some rice and some squid. And by the time we got there, like, this wave was a fair way offshore. It was probably a good half a mile offshore, and I started paddling out and got halfway out to it, and it was too dark, you know. I didn't get to surf. We kind of missed the only day of fun waves. And then, yeah, like, this whole island, it was pretty small. It was probably like maybe a couple of 100 meters across by maybe like a kilometer long. And a lot of it had been burned. And there were hundreds and hundreds of like turtle carcasses there. And I was kind of like, oh, this is pretty weird. And asked locals about it a bit later on, and they said, yeah, people, like, the turtle meat's worth quite a lot of money. So this island was, like, obviously a nesting ground. And yeah, locals say that guys just went there, and while these turtles were nesting, and basically just massacred hundreds of turtles, took all the meat, and kind of burned the island to dispose of all the evidence. I mean, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's saying, like, it's sold in the city. Turtle meat goes for like 250,000 rupiah a kilo. One, like, a small turtle's maybe a kilo, and like a big turtle, 25 kilos. It's like, you know, that's kind of the equivalent of basically one of those big turtles is kind of basically the equivalent of 2 months' salary for an Indonesian fisherman, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty sad to see.
It's like, say, 10,000 to $1, give or take, an Australian dollar. So people can do the maths at home. But
yeah, about 10 grand worth of doll money, basically, you know. So yeah. So so it was pretty sad, you know. It was pretty horrific. But, you know, I suppose people are just doing what they can do to get by, and I guess one thing I've noticed about Indonesia is the environment is a very different thing to Indonesian people to what it is in Australia. You know, I think maybe in Australia a lot of that stems from, I mean, I think Australia's been more indigenized than it gives itself recognition for. And I think maybe a lot of it stems from that indigenous culture where the natural environment is basically a divine thing. You know, it's something that a lot of the stories that make up that culture are weaved around, and it's integral to those stories. And in Australia, it's really something to be respected and preserved. Whereas in Indonesia, where, you know, people are, like, life's kind of a constant struggle to get enough money to get food and cigarettes, and it's basically a resort, like just a resource that's there to be exploited, you know.
Yeah, far out. I mean, yeah, desperate people do desperate things, and that's just the nature of poverty, isn't it? Like, the flip sides of poverty are always, you know, it's, yeah, desperate people acting out either in ways of crime, and like, that's what you see in places like Brazil and South Africa, and in Indonesia, where, you know, like, crime is dealt with so punitively. Like, you know, if you get caught thieving, you're getting bashed to death in broad daylight by whoever catches you, or you're getting, you know, hacked up with machetes on the spot, like, and no one's coming to ask questions. So I guess the desperate acts tend to be inflicted on nature and resources, whether it's cutting down timber, planting palm oil, massacring turtles, you know, fucking massacring orangutans, selling illegal wildlife in markets. Yeah, it's kind of endless, and that's the karma, I guess, of you know, the neo-colonial exploitation of that archipelago. And that is also a big part of the narrative of Indonesia, and why they're in the situation they're in, is just decades upon decades of first Dutch exploitation, and then you know, essentially European and American exploitation from during the Suharto era, or facilitated by Suharto, leaving them now in a situation where yeah, the inequality, the wealth inequality, is so fucking mind-bogglingly outrageous. Like the 0.1%, or the 1% of the population compared to everyone else. And yeah, I mean, that's what I essentially blame turtle massacres on, is that level of inequality, basically. Like that what else, what other reason is there?
It's true. I mean, I think part of that is, you know, parts of these things are kind of born out of necessity for survival. But I think there's also an element of greed there as well, which is kind of endemic to all human beings, you know. But yeah, like you say, I think that does come from that inequality, you know. It's like, yeah, if these people see other people with, you know, or hear stories of other people with kind of all these nice things and new motorbikes and nice hand phones, and, you know, even guys like me and Webby with the luxury to be able to travel to these places with a surfboard and explore and go surfing, which is an activity that's completely based around pleasure, you know. I mean, if they see and experience all these things, why shouldn't they be able to have that as well, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure the cost of covering the basic needs of your average Indonesian would be so low compared to Australia. I know there's those studies here where, you know, once you make 80 grand a year, the kind of graph of happiness tapers off dramatically. Like, it goes pretty steep until you hit a certain basic income, and then beyond that, money doesn't really afford you any increase in happiness. In Indonesia, that number's probably around fucking annually 10 grand or 15 grand. And then you consider that Suharto, during his dictatorship, embezzled, I believe it was around 35 billion, making him the, like, right up there. I believe the most corrupt dictator of all time. He's definitely in the top three. I know that the Marcoses from the Philippines are in that top three convo too. And again, that, you know, the Philippines, another capitalist American dictatorship, just like Indonesia. So yeah, I mean, that's the situation. That's the world we live in. And fuck yeah, the people and the planet pay for the misdeeds of nihilistic, greedy scum, and that culture of greed filters down, you know, through every layer of the population. When the leader of the country is doing that and everyone knows it, well, the average Joe's like, fuck, now is my opportunity to get mine. Like, these turtles are gotta die.
Yeah, but I mean, it's funny looking at that thing of wealth not equaling happiness as well. I mean, like, going back to Claude and you know, him building his luxury resort there at Niuatu. There was a lot of land there that he acquired. He said it took him 9.5 years to acquire all that land. There was like land ownership in Indonesia is quite a complex thing. You know, it's like one brother thinks it's his and the other thinks it's his, and no one's kind of got any papers for it. And so he acquired all this land off different clans and different family groups to build this resort. And during that 9.5 years that he was there, and the 2.5 years after, or 2.5 years afterwards that he was building his resort, he basically just lived in a shack on the beach out the front of Niuatu. He said the closest road ended 3 kilometers away. He had like a little 4-wheel drive that he'd just go to town and buy rice and you know, a few basic supplies, and he had a little Zodiac out the front that he'd whip around in and go surfing and go fishing. And he was saying that time that he spent there living like that was actually probably the happiest that he'd ever been in his life. And he said that he actually enjoyed that. He found greater fulfillment in that than when his resort was finally built and open to the public.
Yeah, I believe it. I guess the only difference is that if Claude gets seriously ill or injured, or one of his children gets seriously ill or injured, he can pay for their healthcare. Whereas that's a situation that most Indonesians are not in, and that's when money really matters. Is really for getting emergency healthcare for you or your loved ones. Watching loved ones die in front of your eyes of curable diseases or treatable injuries, like that's not a reality that anyone in Australia has to deal with, but it is a reality for everyone in Indonesia. And one of your great interviews along the way, I actually love that interview with the welder back in Bali, I think it was. And yeah, you know, he was this older guy who took safety really seriously, but just made the point that in Indonesia, like, your safety is your own responsibility. And yeah, like mate, there's fucking no safety regulations in that joint. It's comical. Got to be so on point.
But I suppose, like, one of the beautiful things about Indonesia that I find is it's kind of a country where you're ruled by your own stupidity. You know, there's not so many rules and so many people telling you what to do, and you can't do this and you can't do that, and you're going to get a fine if you do this. It's like, all right, well, you can do whatever you want, but like, if you do something stupid, there's a chance that, like, you're going to get yourself into some sort of trouble, and there's you know, that's on you. That's your own fault, you know. So yeah, it's you know, it's a free country. It's life here is pretty free. It's pretty easy. It's pretty cheap, but sometimes maybe a little bit too cheap as well, as you're saying, you know.
Now talk to us about some of the waves you scored. I understand you and Budzi Bra, Ty Graham had a classic session. Just the two of you trading cones on an island somewhere in the archipelago.
Yeah. I mean, like I was saying, it's pretty hard to just roll up and score and kind of just stumble across waves where you know, just kind of roll into like a really good day at a wave that you don't really know anything about. I'd heard a little bit about this particular wave. I knew there was a swell coming and it might light up. I didn't really know what conditions it needed, or I just took the chance. I think that was like, it's either really fickle or really crowded, you know. So, and if you want to surf without the crowd, sometimes you just got to take the punt and just have a gamble and go out there and see what's out there. And yeah, so I did. It's a fair way offshore. It was like a 40-minute paddle to get out there. It was solid when I got out there. I was kind of watching it for a bit. I was pretty grateful that Ty was there. He had his mate Harrow there. It was on a ski in the channel taking photos. Ty looked after us. He gave us a vest. He sort of showed us the ropes a little bit out there. And yeah, it was one of those all-time sessions, you know. It's like, yeah, I mean, you go to Nihiwatu and sort of pay thousands of dollars a night to be able to have that experience, to be able to surf really good waves, you know, either on your own or just with you and one other mate or a couple of guys out, you know. So yeah, the first day was pretty rogue. There was some big 12-foot sort of cleanup sets, like keeping us both on our toes. I lost the board. I got my leggy ripped off. Ty loaned us another board, and so yeah, it was an all-time session, and yeah, thanks to him for showing us the ropes out there and looking after us over that couple of days. It was epic few days. And I don't know, I suppose, like, people, when I started off on this trip, people sometimes ask me, they said, oh, where are you going, you know? It's like, and I don't know if this trip ever had a destination. Like, I don't know if a journey needs to have a particular destination. It's not, to me, it's not, I want to get to this particular point and then turn around and go home. It's more it's more of a peak, you know. I think the journey more has this peak. It has this kind of climax where you arrive and like all the roads have kind of led you to that point, and it's like this is kind of what it's all about. And then from there, it's kind of like a downhill run, you know. It's sort of starting to make your way home and turning around and going back. And for me, that was definitely the peak of that trip. You know, it felt like all the roads kind of led me up to that point. That was sort of the climax of it all. You know?
Amazing, man. And did you lock into any solo sessions? I think you mentioned that you did get some pretty consequential waves and ended up actually getting into a bit of a pickle on your own.
Yeah. I mean, like it's the waves in Sumba are pretty fickle. It's definitely a lot more raw than other parts of Indo. It's a pretty exposed coast. It's pretty wild. It's kind of similar to surfing, like I'd compare it maybe to like a tropical version of WA or something, you know. And so yeah, there was this one wave I wanted to go and surf. There's like a short boat ride out there. Yeah, no one around the surf camps was keen on coming, so I went on my own. And from like there's no real channel. I saw a couple of good sized sets, and then I sort of jumped off and went and sat in the channel for like 15 minutes and watched it. And I saw a few. It sort of breaks right in front of these cliffs. There's kind of no way to get on or off the land. And yeah, I watched it for a bit. I saw some really good ones. It was pretty frothing and paddled over. And as soon as I paddled over, this rogue like 10-foot cleanup set came through. I just managed to sneak under the first one. And the second one, like I kind of just got under and then it sucked me back and pinned me to the reef, like ripped my leggy off. Like I still had my board in my hands, but the next one I copped right on the head and had to, like I should really have bailed, but I didn't kind of have that option. I just had to try and duck dive, and the thing just like the board just disintegrated in my hand. Wasn't sure if I was going to be able to try and swim back out through the closeout to try and get to the boat. You know, it was yeah. I mean, it's sometimes I love surfing on my own. It does take a little bit of getting used to. But yeah, when you get yourself into a bit of a situation, it's, you know, you're pretty much, you've only got yourself to rely on and try and get you out of there, which sometimes can be a little bit frightening too.
And then at the other end of the spectrum, you know, you visited some of those name waves at the start of your journey, deserts in particular. Like, what's the situation down there like?
Oh, it's pretty full on. I didn't enjoy surfing there too much. You know, you basically got to waves. Yeah, I mean, Claude, you're talking about those surf ghettos and the state of surfing at the moment and the way that things have become. I think deserts is a pretty prime example of that. You know, I mean, it's one of the best waves in the world. But yeah, I think one of the things I've noticed in Indo as well, when it comes to crowds as well, it's really different to a lot of other places in the world that I've surfed, where there aren't a lot of local surfers here, and there isn't really anyone kind of enforcing that sort of that hierarchy or that order that's sort of necessary to maintain peace sometimes, you know. And a lot of crew, you get a lot of crew who have paid a good amount of money to come from different parts around the world to surf good waves, and they've got a short period of time in which they're able to do that, you know. And so it becomes a bit of a free-for-all sometimes. It's like everyone kind of just wants to get their fill and convert the money that they've spent into good waves, and like there's no real fear of repercussion if they, you know, if they behave in a way that's kind of disrespectful to other people. It's a bit of a mess sometimes, you know. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's like it was pretty unreal to see that wave at its best, but yeah, I didn't enjoy surfing there too much, and I think it was a pretty good example of some of the like, yeah, the negative state in that surfing has evolved into, you know.
And you mentioned Jim Banks a little bit ago. I mean, I think he's the guy who found deserts, or if not, like among the very first to surf it. Yeah, talk to us a bit about the sort of inspiration you drew from Banksy. He features in your documentary series. He's an absolute icon and pioneer of surf travel, particularly in Indonesia. An incredible talent, an incredible shaper. Yeah, what was it like to have an audience with the great man?
Yeah, he had a good yarn with Banks. He's a pretty interesting cat. One way in which I really related to him was, I mean, he was on the pro tour for a bit. He was into competitive surfing, and I think he won the on pro in at Uluwatu in 1981. And after that, basically just turned his back on competitive surfing and walked away from it all to go and get, you know, that empty and hollow feeling that he'd felt. It's kind of like, well, what's next? Is there something more than this? And yeah, I mean, I think obviously within surfing, there's the waves are a finite resource. There's kind of a limited amount for it, and there's competition within that. But I think that, to me, that kind of goes against the spirit of what I think competition goes against the spirit of what surfing actually means to me. I mean, it's about finding some solitude and some peace and some enjoyment. And if you got to sort of compete with other people to try and find that, or try and be better than somebody else, it sort of defeats what surfing means to me. And I related to Banksy in that way as well. That he preferred to just go and sort of find the best ways that he could and go and get coned on his own, and wasn't really looking for any kind of recognition or hype. Obviously he had to find ways to be able to finance himself to be able to do that. But yeah, it's kind of surfing distilled down to its most pure and basic form, surfing alone, especially tube riding as well. I mean, that's kind of the ultimate goal, isn't it? It's something of like a divine experience. The world's kind of exploding around you, and you're sort of traveling through it, traveling through space and time, and kind of skirting this fine line between elation and destruction. Yeah.
Love that description. Yeah, and talk us through your trusty steed, man, the black camel, a petrol lid held together by glue and cigarette butts.
Yeah,
Amazing.
the black camel. I was wondering what to call it. I was racking my brains for ages, and one guy I met out in the surf, this guy Nath, he coined it. He's never thirsty, always dry, he reckons, which is kind of a pretty ironic description, because it's pretty much always thirsty. It chews through a bit of juice, and it's been down a few beaches, so it's never really too dry. But yeah, it's a classic Indo bike. It's sort of just all cobbled together from, it's got a Yamaha motor, it's got a Hyosung frame, a Suzuki key, it all sort of slapped together in some Indo backyard garage. They've done a pretty good job. It's held together, it's definitely got a bit of character, it's been a pretty faithful steed. I'll be sad to see it go, actually. I mean, I suppose vehicles are one of these things that we sort of develop a connection with over time. It's like, like I think that after sort of battering it down a few of those rough tracks, I think if anyone else was to ride this bike, it would just fall apart beneath them. But you sort of develop a connection with the machine after spending so much time on it. It becomes like an extension of you, almost as much a part of your arms and legs. And I think you see the same thing with cars as well. Like cars are like inside the car, it's like somebody the moment you step into their car. It's a reflection of who they are. Vehicles are an interesting thing. I find they kind of like dogs, they come to take on a bit of their owner's personality after all. So yeah.
That's good. And Banksy single board quiver, man, what did he make in the end?
I went a 6.5 20 Revolution twin pin that he was raving about. I've never really been a fan of twin fins. I kind of always disliked them. I found they had, just for the lack of drive and the lack of hold. You know, obviously they're fast, they're skatey, but yeah, I never really liked them that much. But Banksy was raving about this one. He had a few. He had maybe yeah, something like a 6.2 or a 6.3. He convinced us to go a 6.5. He just said, no, this will do everything that you want it to do. You know, you'll be able to ride it, and sort of like anything from double overhead to waist high. And yeah, it's been a magic board. He reckons he was saying that all the, you know, all the drive and it doesn't really feel like a twin fin, you know. It's got a lot of drive, it's got a lot of hold. He was saying all that comes from the fin base. It's got like it makes his fins for it that have got a really long fin base, which combined I think are more than your standard thruster, you know. So it's, yeah, it did take a little bit of getting used to, but yeah, it's been an unreal board.
And it's a channel bottom as well.
No, so I was traveling with two boards. He got another channel bottom single fin as well that Phil Myers shaped us based on an early Cole Smith design.
Classic.
It's been a good. Yeah, I'm kind of glad. I was thinking maybe I should only take one. It'd be a lot easier to travel around. I'm kind of glad I brought two because yeah, I snapped one, so I would have been in a bit of trouble without that. But yeah, it's a pretty radical, frightening looking thing. It's like the Cole Smith design. It's got like a really narrow tail and these 10 channels that are really deep and go way up past the midpoint of the board. It's a pretty unforgiving surfboard. It hates any kind of chop or any kind of wobble in the waves. Like the board sort of seems to cavitate a bit if the wave face isn't real clean. But yeah, in the right kind of waves, like long line, really clean, perfect long lined up waves with a little bit of bottom tension, it goes unreal. And I've kind of always liked the single fin. You know, I feel it kind of like surfing on your own. It distills surfing down to its most pure and basic form. There's kind of not really a lot of room for unnecessary movement, you know, and especially in hollow waves. You sort of set your line and look for the tube. You know, there's not really too much else that you can do on them, I suppose. It's yeah.
Yeah, I feel like single fins really suit a lot of the waves in Indo because you've got that kind of that roll-in situation there. You can get an early entry and just get draw a really good, solid, firm line through the tube. You know, select ledges in Indo anyway. Obviously, the down the line ones where you got to get going, supers and deserts and the like, not so single fin friendly, but some of the others, it's a good board for over there.
For sure, yeah, and good to have. Yeah, it's been good to have the combo as well and sort of be able to mix it up. But yeah, only the channel bottom left now. So yeah.
And so, what's the plan now? I understand you're heading back to West Oz for the first time in 8 years. So that's all been spent in India, or where have you been for those 8 years?
Yeah, so I haven't been back to Perth. I haven't spent a significant amount of time in Perth for the last 8 years. Most of my family's there. My brother's just had a kid. And you know, I suppose like we spoke about in our last interview, you know, I suppose a lot of after the things that happened when I, you know, through my teenage years and when I was younger, I felt the need to distance myself from that and to get away from Perth. I don't think it was running away. I think it was more giving myself the time and space to recreate my idea of who I was and who I wanted to be, away from, you know, the teenage ice addict and criminal that I had been. And I actually had to physically remove myself from the place to be able to do that. So yeah, I spent 4 or 5 years in Margaret River, a couple of years traveling around Oz, and yeah, sort of the last 6 months on the road in Indo. But you know, I feel I've reached this point now where I have been able to recreate who I am. I'm happy with who I am. And I feel, I would love to go overseas for an extended period at some point. And I feel like if I don't go back home and renew some of those relationships with family and put in that effort to try and heal some of those things. I mean, there's only so much I can do within my family, but at least try and heal some of some of those things within myself. It's I feel I really need to give myself to kind of go back to Perth and have that time to be able to do that. So it's a long journey to get back there. You've got to go from Sumba to Bali, fly back down to Melbourne, fly up to Sydney for the Walkleys, back to Melbourne, and then drive back across to Nullarbor. So you've got a long way to go. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for what lies ahead.
Yeah, that's fascinating, man. You're on your way to the Walkleys, the kind of big journalism awards night. So you'll be rubbing shoulders with the bourgeois media elites after 6 months of sitting in the dust, eating packet noodles with the Indonesian working class.
Well, I don't think there'll be too much dried. You're living off that island just eating dried squid for 3 days. I don't think there'll be too much dried squid at the Walkleys, which I'm pretty relieved about.
Nah, it's all champagne and caviar at that end of town, my friend.
Sure, yeah.
What do you? So you've been nominated for something?
Up for been nominated for the feature writing award, the long feature writing award. So going up for that in the finals. I think there's 3 of us. We'll see how I go, but it'll be a pretty surreal experience, sort of coming out of the jungle and straight into the Walkleys. I don't know if I'm too prepared for it, but we'll see how we go.
What was the feature?
It was a 4-part. It was a 4-part series I wrote on learning to rediscover joy and learning how to love myself again after the teenage years that I lost to juvenile detention and ice addiction. And I feel like, I travel around Australia trying to find that for a long time. I feel like this journey's kind of been an extension of that. I mean, Indonesia, it's really a reminder of what's really important in life and the simple pleasures. But it was a 4-part series that was published in the West Australian, and it's been nominated. So I'm stoked to be in the finals, and stoked to be in the running.
Oh, congratulations, man! That's amazing. Well done.
Yeah, thanks, Jed.
Good on you. Fuck yeah.
Cheers.
Right. So that's the journey home, and so you're flying from Sumba to Bali.
No, I'll ride. So I'll ride back. I don't know. I'll ride back across. There's a couple of places I want to have a little bit of a look at on the way back through. Now that the winds are kind of starting to swing around and sort of opening up the southern coast a little bit more. But a little bit of a pickle this morning. I went into town to go and grab a coffee and got pulled over by the cops on the way for not riding without a helmet, and they've taken my rego papers, and like in typical Indo fashion. I'm supposed to be leaving here this Sabo, but I can't get the rego papers back until I've gone and paid the fine at the bank, and I can't pay the fine at the bank yet because the internet system and no one knows when it's going on. And it's like, so it could be here for another night or two, I reckon.
That's
but
classic.
They wouldn't even take a bit of money under the table. I sort of, I handed over my license with kind of 50,000 slipped in there, and he gave it back. So it's maybe a state of how things are changing in India. I suppose a lot of the cops are maybe trying to clean up the image, and that image of corruption that's kind of surrounded a lot of the forces of authority in Indonesia for a long time.
And it's an amazing series. You can watch it on Scenic Route TV, and they're doing well, man. You're already up around 10,000 plays on the 2 episodes so far, and I imagine you're sitting on a ton of footage that you're gonna chop up and put out over the coming weeks.
Yeah, for sure, man. I got some really good stuff, especially over the past couple of months. It's been pretty off the grid. And yeah, a pretty wild place. You know, it's it'd been to a few places that not a lot of people get the opportunity to go to, which has been really cool. And yeah, being able to record that, the looking to make a documentary at some point down the track and put all that together. And there's the series in tracks as well on the journey too. The Indo Motorcycle Diaries, which will run over the next 3 or 4 months, so crew can read about it there as well.
Sick, mate. Well, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, what an epic journey, bro. Well done. Fuck, you've made it safe and happy and healthy. Obviously you still got the return journey, but yeah, good on you. That's such a feat, and just all the benefits I mean, all those human experiences that you've had. Well done.
For sure. Right on, Jed. Thanks for having us on the show, bro. Legend.
On your time. See you, brother. Take care.
Cheers, man. Take it easy.